Thank you all for being here. The tribute and the announcement that I made on Facebook to Mum, saddest day ever, it was just the easiest way to let people know about Mum. I did not expect there to be such an outpouring of stories from people, and it was absolutely beautiful, so touching. There's about 250 likes, loves and sad faces, but then there's actually about 200 comments as well. It really is amazing how many people Mum impacted. Reading through all those comments, it really was touching. I felt it was appropriate to acknowledge everyone's thoughts and comments on that tribute, so I started liking every comment. And once I started, I had to keep going. There was no stopping. I didn't want to miss anybody or offend anybody. But it truly is amazing how many people Mum's life impacted, and we all appreciate you being here. Now, not many people would know this, how Linda and I actually connected. I'd seen Linda around at the school, in the church. She wouldn't actually even give me the time of day. Seriously. Now, Mum and Linda were actually besties. They'd travelled to the UK together. They'd stayed in hotel rooms together. Mind you, guess who did all the driving? Yeah, that'd be Mum. And I bet that doesn't surprise anybody. Anyway, back home, one evening, Linda and Mumsy were going out to dinner. Mum invited me to join them. I don't think she was matchmaking. I think she actually just felt sorry for me. I was staying with her at the time. I was playing single dad to Jessie, so it was just a friend thing. Shortly after this dinner night, Mum went off to Ireland to visit with friends Keith and Elsie Gurner. Now, while Mum was away, Linda and I went out on a few picnics, which turned into dinner dates. We got to know each other well, and well, we fell in love. So there's Mum in Ireland. Linda phones her up. Guess what? Peter and I are getting married. Peter, my Peter, she was totally blown away. Actually, I know that Mum was a bit dubious to start with, but hey, 19 years on, here we are. So there was one bit of info that Mum did tell Linda that actually wasn't quite true. She said I was a romantic. Yeah, no, terrible fail there. Really sorry about that. So actually Linda has challenged Mum on that quite a few times over the years too, let me tell you. So Linda has been my rock in all of this for the past year, going to appointments, tending to Mum, handling her barking orders. Anybody that's worked with Mum has probably experienced that at some stage. And of late, those orders were delivered by the power of Mum's finger. Like, seriously, there is power in that finger. Oh, dangerous. Anyway, thank you, darling. You're a blessing. Mum's calling. Apart from her calling in the admin to Pastor Jerry in the church, her other calling was driving. Now, it's amazing when you think about it. A friend of mine phoned me up last week to give his condolences. Now, I haven't spoken to Alan in over 30 years. And while we're reminiscing, he said, remember the time when I broke my ankle and your mum drove me all the way to South Hedland? And I do remember that. Now, South Hedland was about a 40-kilometre round trip in her little Suzuki four-wheel drive, second one in Port Hedland, I might add. And that was what she did. It was actually a part of her ministry, was driving. And we sort of all think about that, but yeah, it was just a big part. Mum also shares the story of how this block of land was actually secured way back in 1988 when an offer was made on it. The short story version is, when the offer was made, the signed papers needed to be lodged by a certain time, but Pastor Jerry was away on a remote retreat in the hills. And Mum made a mad dash from 1 p.m, the papers had to be lodged by 4. Mum made a mad dash to get there, find him, get the papers signed, and back into Wellington Street by 4 p.m, which she did. The details of that story are actually on a Mum's commemorative website, which is merylbutler.com.au, so you can have a read of that. It's a really good read. And there's a few other notes that Mum's made over the years about family and so forth. It's a good read. Even last year, with Mum's ministry, there was a local kid that went to school here. He rolled up on Mum's doorstep one day, totally out of the blue, needed a lift to school. So that was Mum's mission for a season, picking him up and making sure he got to school. I quite often made jokes that Mum was a lady of the manor. And again, anyone that worked with her knew that. And if they didn't, they soon learnt. And if they ever forgot, she would remind them as often as needed. And looking after her for the last year, it was no different for us, let me tell you. And when she lost the ability to speak, like I said earlier, that finger wielded lots of power. She was very dogmatic. She knew what she wanted, and she just made it happen. Her garden in Parmelia. Mum saw climbing roses in a garden magazine, so she decided that's what she wanted. I said, no, Mum, they're really high maintenance. It's a high maintenance garden. Seriously. Next time I visited, all the pine posts were on site, loads of wire, and half the holes were dug already. So, okay, Mum, I'll be back on the weekend to help you finish it off. Come the weekend, yeah, it's all done. Poles are in, wires up, roses are planted, it's all done. And for the next 18 years, I got to look after them. Yep, so what was I thinking? Roses weren't a high maintenance garden at all. Not for Mum, it was my job, apparently. Like I said, she just made things happen. While we're talking about her garden in Parmelia, she had a rose arbour, a big 3-sided stand. She wanted paving all around it, big circle, a big circle going up the back garden. Now, anybody that's done paving knows that curves are really difficult and time consuming, but that's what Mum wanted. So despite my suggestions, I laboured away weekend after weekend, only had a few inches to go, and it was all done. My brother Stuart started staying with Mum for a season, so he finished it off. And Mum raved for years about the great paving job that Stuart did. Have a look at the family caricature out the back afterwards. You'll be able to pick Stuart out from us all. He's the one with the halo. Golden boy. True story. Mum was a very practical woman, as any who worked with her would know. And this is Mum's funeral instructions. This is a true story, and this is verbatim. Ashes to be scattered at a later time, maybe in the swamp at the back of the Freeway Church, or down at the Waikiki Beach, or wherever is easier. Just get rid of them. Full stop. This is a true story. And in that vein, me taking after Mumsy, when the doctor advised us that the end was getting near, I went into pre-prep mode, as I had to. I made a tentative date for the funeral. We had 2 short weeks coming up with Easter. Then she didn't pass when expected, and a few more days went by. So I had to have a chat to Mum. Mum, clock's ticking away. You're going to be late for your own funeral. And Jesus already has dibs on Good Friday, so... Anyway, so on behalf of my brothers and sisters, Mandy, Stuart, Harry and Kendry, and my son Jesse, Mum did so much for us. That's what mums do, right? But we were pretty high maintenance kids, and Mum just went over and above. Thanks, Mum. We also want to thank and acknowledge the McCoys, the Freeway Church, and this community for honouring Mum in the way they have. We are eternally grateful. Thanks for being here to celebrate Mum's life.